Immigration as a geopolitical weapon. How foreign dictatorships exploit migration to undermine democracies. Lessons in psychohistory. In the complex theater of international politics, the use of immigration as a weapon by authoritarian regimes is a subtle yet potent strategy to destabilize democratic societies. Unlike overt acts of warfare or economic sanctions, this method capitalizes on the inherent openness and humanitarian inclinations of democracies, turning these virtues into vulnerabilities. By orchestrating mass migrations or manipulating existing flows of immigrants, dictatorial regimes can impose political, economic, and social strains on target nations, thereby undermining their stability and eroding their democratic institutions. Weaponizing migration. A tactical overview. The strategic deployment of migration as a geopolitical tool is not a novel concept. However, its application by modern autocracies has evolved in sophistication and scale. This tactic often involves the deliberate creation of crises that lead to large-scale displacements. Such crises can be triggered through internal repression, economic mismanagement, or even orchestrated conflicts, driving citizens to flee in search of refuge. The goal is to inundate democratic states with sudden surges of immigrants, overwhelming their social services, straining political cohesion and igniting societal tensions. For instance, dictatorships may manipulate migration flows to exert pressure on neighboring democracies, as seen in cases where regimes weaponize refugees as leverage in political negotiations. This approach was vividly exemplified in 2021 when Belarus, under the leadership of Alexander Lukashenko, engineered a migrant crisis along the European Union's borders by facilitating the movement of migrants from the Middle East and Africa to its frontiers with Poland and Lithuania. By doing so, Belarus not only aimed to retaliate against EU sanctions, but also sought to create internal discord within the Union, exploiting the differing national responses to immigration, political polarization, and social fragmentation. The influx of large numbers of migrants can exacerbate existing divisions within democratic societies, particularly when immigration becomes a flashpoint for political polarization. Authoritarian regimes are acutely aware of the societal cleavages in democracies, whether along lines of race, religion, or ideology, and exploit these fault lines to their advantage. The presence of immigrants can become a polarizing issue, fueling nationalist and xenophobic movements that challenge the very fabric of democratic tolerance and inclusivity. Furthermore, the strain on social services such as healthcare, education, and housing can lead to public discontent, providing fertile ground for populist leaders who promise to address the immigration problem by dismantling the democratic norms of openness and multiculturalism. This political turbulence can weaken democratic governance, making it more susceptible to external influence and internal decay. Economic burden and security concerns. Beyond the social and political ramifications, the economic impact of sudden, large-scale immigration can be profound. Democracies may find their resources stretched thin as they attempt to accommodate and integrate new arrivals. Authoritarian states exploit this economic strain by fostering perceptions of a zero-sum scenario where the needs of immigrants are pitted against those of native citizens. This narrative can be amplified through disinformation campaigns, sowing distrust in democratic institutions, and eroding public confidence in the government's ability to manage immigration effectively. Moreover, security concerns often accompany these migratory waves, as fears of terrorism, crime, and cultural dilution are stoked by both real and perceived threats. Authoritarian regimes can further inflame these anxieties through covert operations or propaganda, suggesting that the influx of immigrants includes potential saboteurs or extremists. These tactics aim to create an atmosphere of fear and insecurity, prompting democracies to adopt more draconian measures that compromise their own values and weaken the rule of law. Erosion of international solidarity. The strategic use of immigration as a weapon also seeks to fracture alliances among democratic nations. When faced with migratory pressure, democracies may respond with divergent policies, ranging from open-door approaches to strict border controls that reflect their domestic political landscapes. This disunity can be exploited by authoritarian states to drive wedges between allied democracies, undermining collective responses to broader geopolitical challenges. For example, the European Union's fragmented response to the Syrian refugee crisis revealed the limitations of solidarity within the bloc, with some member states embracing refugees while others erected barriers. Authoritarian regimes observe these divisions and use them to their advantage, furthering their own geopolitical aims while highlighting the perceived weaknesses of democratic cooperation. Conclusion: a call for resilience and strategy ***. To counter the weaponization of immigration, democracies must adopt a multifaceted approach that addresses both the symptoms and root causes of forced migration. This involves strengthening border security and immigration policies while maintaining humanitarian commitments. Equally important is the need for robust diplomatic and economic strategies that mitigate the influence of authoritarian regimes in destabilizing regions. Democracies should also invest in counter-disinformation efforts to neutralize the narratives used by autocracies to sow discord. By bolstering societal resilience against polarization and fostering inclusive dialogues on immigration, democratic states can transform their perceived vulnerabilities into strengths. Ultimately, safeguarding democracy requires a vigilant and adaptive stance against the myriad ways in which foreign dictatorships seek to exploit the open nature of free societies. Through unity, strategic foresight, and a reaffirmation of democratic values, the weaponization of immigration by authoritarian regimes can be effectively countered, preserving the integrity and stability of democratic institutions in an increasingly interconnected world.